Everything's fixed. I'm in.
Cary Grant was once Hollywood's ultimate leading man, an icon of sophistication whose charm seemed impossible to resist. Fans remember him for his razor-sharp wit, tailored suits, and elegantly comedic timing on screen. But behind that glossy image lay struggles and secrets that belied the carefree persona he projected. In recent years, stories from his only daughter, Jennifer Grant, have cast a revealing spotlight on a father who was anything but laid back. Rumors swirl about a perfect father who was, in reality, obsessively controlling, possibly even harboring resentments strong enough to be called hatred. Although words like hate can sound extreme, certain revelations from Jennifer's memoir and interviews suggest that Cary Grant's longing to create the childhood he never had led him down a path of rigid rules and constant scrutiny. Where does the myth end and the real man begin? The more you learn about Cary Grant's life, the more you realize that the polished veneer of old Hollywood stardom was only part of his complicated story. Before he was Cary Grant, he was a young boy grappling with poverty, an absent mother, and a father who seemed unable to provide any sense of security. Over the years, he reinvented himself so well that even those closest to him struggled to keep up with his ever-shifting identities. Yet for all his transformations, certain wounds from his early life never healed, and they bubbled to the surface most painfully when he tried to become the perfect dad. This is the saga of Cary Grant that very few ever talk about, a tale of triumphant success, multiple marriages, private battles, and rumors that still linger decades after his passing. Long before he captivated moviegoers, Cary Grant was born as Archibald Leach in Bristol, England, in 1904. His upbringing was the definition of hardship. Archie, as he was known then, lived under the shadow of a struggling father who could barely keep the family clothed and fed. His mother's abrupt disappearance when he was just 9 years old traumatized him in ways that can still be felt through his later actions. He was told she had gone away on a long holiday, but in truth, she had been placed in a mental institution. This devastating secret remained buried for over 2 decades, leaving Archie with a sense of abandonment and confusion that he could never completely shake. Amid the turmoil, young Archie discovered that performing gave him purpose. By the time he was in his early teens, he'd formed a love for theater, hanging around backstage at the Bristol Hippodrome and dreaming of a life far removed from his impoverished reality. He was eventually expelled from school, an event that might have broken others, but instead set him on a path towards show business. Joining the Bob Pender troupe gave him the escape he desperately needed. His journey led him to America, where he performed in vaudeville and Broadway shows, making ends meet by taking on odd jobs. Gradually, the scrappy English teenager refined his comedic timing, physical stunt work, and, most importantly, his sense of style. The final transformation came when he signed with Paramount Pictures. The studio deemed Archibald Leach too plain, so they brainstormed a new identity for him. Settling on Cary Grant turned out to be the perfect choice, reflecting both the sophisticated persona he longed to embody and the dash of approachability that endeared him to audiences everywhere. Yet behind that stage name lay a past that would continue influencing his every move, from how he handled fame to the way he approached fatherhood. In 1933, Cary Grant's real breakthrough arrived when Mae West famously declared, "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?" And She Done Him Wrong. The film saved Paramount from the brink of financial disaster and catapulted Grant into the mainstream overnight. Hollywood was in awe of this debonair Brit whose comedic chops perfectly complemented Mae West's brash confidence. Shortly after, he starred in I'm No Angel, cementing his place as a box office draw. His weekly salary soared, and with it came a new sense of control over his career. Then came a move that baffled industry insiders. He decided to go freelance. At a time when the studio system still governed every aspect of an actor's life, Cary Grant walked away from a hefty contract because he felt stifled by the roles he was offered. Many predicted he would flounder as a free agent, but in typical Grant style, he defied expectations. His first freelance project, Topper, 1937, proved that studios needed him more than he needed them. Soon he was starring in comedic gems like The Awful Truth and Bringing Up Baby, showcasing a witty, self-effacing style that quickly became his trademark. Audiences marveled at his ability to blend slapstick humor with an elegant flair, leaving them never quite sure if he was in on the joke or orchestrating it. Even as he laughed on screen, Cary Grant carried deep personal wounds. Whispers around Hollywood suggested that this charming lead carried private burdens that might explain his many romantic entanglements and restlessness. Nonetheless, throughout the late 1930s and 1940s, he reigned as a comedic king, only to shock everyone again by venturing into more dramatic territory.
And women.
Oh, women.
You've known quite a few, haven't you?
Oh, I don't know.
Cary Grant's love life was as unpredictable and dramatic as any of his most famous screen roles. Over the course of his life, he entered into 5 marriages, each one accompanied by its own set of controversies and gossip. His first marriage to actress Virginia Cherrill in 1934 was short-lived and made tabloid headlines when she claimed he had been physically abusive, even attempting to strangle her during one heated argument. The marriage ended barely a year later, leaving a trail of rumors and a hefty settlement that stirred Hollywood's relentless rumor mill. Undeterred, Grant soon married Barbara Hutton, heir to the Woolworth fortune and one of the wealthiest women in the world at that time. Nicknamed Cash and Carrie by the press, their union sparked suspicion that he was after her immense wealth. Yet Grant signed a prenuptial agreement to prove he had no interest in her money. Despite that noble gesture, their marriage struggled. Barbara's lavish spending clashed with Grant's memories of poverty, and they found little common ground in handling day-to-day life. Though short, their relationship remained a focus of public fascination. Interestingly, even after their divorce, they stayed amicable, and Grant often offered Hutton emotional support in her later struggles. By the time he wed his third wife, actress Betsy Drake, Grant seemed to crave a different kind of bond, one built on introspection and self-discovery. Betsy introduced him to LSD-assisted therapy, a then experimental practice that both believed might help him process deeply buried traumas from his childhood. The public knew little of these private sessions, though Grant would later speak openly about them, crediting LSD for helping him come to terms with past wounds. The pair's marriage lasted longer than his previous unions, but conflict still lurked beneath the surface. Betsy hoped to carve out her own career path, and while she admired Grant's genius, she struggled to find her place in a marriage overshadowed by his stardom and personal complexities. His next marriage to a much younger Diane Cannon thrust him into fatherhood for the first time at an age when most men contemplate retirement. Initially enchanted by Cannon's youthful energy, Grant soon drew criticism for what she would later describe as controlling behavior. Cannon claimed that he was highly critical of her appearance and pressured her to try LSD, resulting in terrifying experiences for her. Their stormy relationship ended in divorce in 1968, followed by a bitter custody fight over their daughter Jennifer. Despite the acrimony, both eventually set aside hostilities to co-parent their child. Finally, Grant found a lasting sense of calm in his fifth marriage to Barbara Harris, a hotel public relations director decades younger than he was. Remarkably, despite that significant age gap, this proved to be his most tranquil union. They married in 1981 and stayed together until his death in 1986. Friends observed that Grant appeared more at ease in this relationship than he had in any of his previous ones, suggesting he had finally found the stability he'd long sought. Looming over these marital ups and downs was another set of rumors altogether. Speculation regarding his sexuality. Much of it centered on his longtime housemate and friend, actor Randolph Scott. In the early 1930s, the two lived together in what tabloids dubbed Bachelor Hall, complete with stage publicity photos showing them sunbathing or cooking in matching pajamas. Though the arrangement was initially intended to boost their appeal to female fans, it inadvertently sparked talk that the two were romantically involved. Both Grant and Scott repeatedly denied any such relationship, but whispers persisted for decades. Grant even went so far as to sue comedian Chevy Chase for insinuating he was gay, settling the matter out of court. Friends like Betty White and designer Richard Blackwell gave conflicting accounts, with some alleging the men were truly madly in love, while others dismissed the notion as Hollywood folklore. Grant's daughter Jennifer firmly rejected the rumors, asserting she would have fully supported her father if he had been gay, but saw no evidence that he was. In the end, none of these claims were definitively proven, leaving the topic an enduring piece of Hollywood gossip that continues to intrigue film historians and fans alike. When Cary Grant announced his retirement from acting in 1966, the decision sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Here was a man at the absolute peak of his career, an enduring leading man in comedies, thrillers, and romantic dramas, choosing to walk away with no promise of ever returning. Friends, agents, and studio executives were baffled. Offers of million-dollar contracts kept rolling in, but Grant brushed them aside, stating plainly that he had found a new calling in life: being a father. For most of his adult existence, Grant had been consumed with the glamorous demands of Hollywood, cycling through prestigious film sets, red carpet premieres, and European getaways. Yet beneath the tuxedos and award shows, a deeper void nagged at him, a longing to repair the fractured sense of family that he had experienced growing up. When Jennifer was born, he saw in her the perfect chance to finally claim the stable, loving home he never got as a child. It was as though all the heartbreak he'd endured, the mother who vanished to an asylum, the father who couldn't provide, the string of failed marriages, coalesced into a single mission: spare Jennifer the pain he had once felt so acutely. Determined to give her every advantage, Grant immersed himself in Jennifer's day-to-day life in ways that most parents, let alone international stars, rarely do. He documented her childhood with the precision of an archivist, taping conversations, filming her first steps, and preserving her baby teeth in labeled containers. By his own admission, he wanted to capture every fleeting moment, afraid they would otherwise slip away forever. Much like pieces of his own childhood had been lost, he organized her life with meticulous care, supervising her diets, vetting her friends, and arranging her schedules to ensure she was never exposed to the chaos he had known. Critics saw this as a startling contradiction in a man once defined by carefree on-screen charm. However, those who knew him recognized an individual trying to rewrite his past by devoting himself so fully to his daughter's future. The same perfectionism that propelled him to superstar status now manifested in close-up fatherly guidance. Some called it overly controlling, others found it admirably devoted. His abrupt shift from spotlight to stroller pushed the boundaries of what fans expected from a legendary leading man. Even so, Grant appeared genuinely satisfied in his choice, more content reading bedtime stories than memorizing lines for a new role. While many have speculated on the intensity of this father-daughter bond, wondering if Grant ever overstepped from devoted to domineering, there is no denying his sincerity in sacrificing a glittering, lucrative career. His abrupt break from film, his refusal to make cameos, and even his modest corporate job at Fabergé all pointed to one goal: freedom and presence for Jennifer. In an industry notorious for devouring personal relationships, his story stood out as a testament that sometimes even the brightest star can willingly dim their own light if it means giving the next generation a chance to shine. For decades, the public viewed Cary Grant's relationship with his daughter Jennifer as a sentimental snapshot of Hollywood royalty, stepping away from fame to become a devoted father. The reality turned out to be more complex, so much so that headlines circulated suggesting Cary Grant outright hated her. Where did such a stark claim come from, and how did Jennifer herself address it? In her memoir, Good Stuff, A Reminiscence of My Father, Cary Grant, Jennifer discusses the guarded environment she grew up in. From the moment she was born, her father meticulously recorded every aspect of her life, an act Jennifer sometimes found touching, but occasionally stifling. She mentions that he was so focused on creating a perfect childhood for her that he monitored details most parents would ignore, like her diet, the temperature of her bedroom, and even the pace of her homework. Jennifer describes it not as hatred, but as a reflection of his obsessive need to safeguard her from every possible misstep, stemming, she believed, from his own traumatic youth. She never felt unloved. Instead, she saw him as a father haunted by the fear of losing her or failing to protect her from the hardships he had endured. Still, this intense vigilance could feel suffocating. Jennifer recounts moments when Grant's perfectionism overshadowed the bond they shared. He had particular ideas about behavior, etiquette, and personal presentation, and he wasn't shy about expressing his disapproval if she didn't measure up to his standards. Outsiders sometimes took these stories and ran with them, turning a father's overprotectiveness into rumors of acrimony and harshness. Jennifer admits that these episodes were hurtful and confusing, but she draws a clear line between being controlling and outright hate. According to her, much of his so-called tough approach resulted from a desperate desire to undo the damage he carried from his own fractured upbringing. He was a man who did not want history repeating itself in any form. In interviews, Jennifer emphasizes her father's warmth and humor in daily life, recalling how he loved to play games with her or surprise her with heartfelt gestures. She also points out that no parent-child relationship is without tension, especially when the parent in question is one of the most famous figures on the planet. Any conflict or disagreement between them was inevitably magnified in the public eye. Over time, tales of Cary Grant's controlling side ballooned into the far more shocking notion that he despised his daughter. Jennifer challenges this narrative by highlighting his unwavering financial and emotional support, as well as his eagerness to show her off to friends. He would invite people over just so he could share her latest achievements. When asked about the sensational headlines, Jennifer often responds that her father's biggest flaw was loving her so intensely that he overmanaged her life. She never doubted his devotion, but wishes there had been room for her to explore her own identity without feeling quite so monitored. In the end, Jennifer's story offers a balanced view. She acknowledges the frustrating parts of having a father determined to craft a spotless childhood, yet she also credits him for shaping her confidence, ambition, and resilience. Far from hating her, Cary Grant, burdened by his own troubled history, likely held on too tight, exposing the human vulnerabilities of a man who was otherwise the epitome of Hollywood poise. Despite 4 failed marriages, Cary Grant found relative peace in his 5th marriage to Barbara Harris. Friends claim this was the calm, stable relationship he had sought all his life. No longer a leading man on the big screen, he channeled his energies into business ventures, most notably with Fabergé, accepting a modest salary largely for the perk of a corporate jet that allowed him to visit Jennifer often. He also embarked on a traveling stage show later in life, sharing anecdotes and stories directly with fans. Sadly, it was while preparing for one of these events in Davenport, Iowa, that he suffered the stroke which ended his life in 1986. True to his private nature, he had requested no major funeral service. Instead, his ashes were scattered in the Pacific, far from the chaos of any Hollywood spectacle. The aftermath of his death saw tributes pouring in from every corner of the entertainment world. Presidents, directors, fellow actors, all lauded him as one of the greatest performers of the 20th century. His estate, estimated between $60 million and $80 million, went mostly to his wife, Barbara, and his beloved daughter, Jennifer. That final gesture underscored his lifelong drive to provide for the family he cherished. Yet the debates about his personal life have never died down. Fans are left to ponder how a man so charming on screen could be so troubled off it, and whether his relentless striving for perfection ultimately robbed him of the peace he craved. Cary Grant's life is both an inspiration and a cautionary tale. He rose from a grim childhood in England to become one of Hollywood's most bankable stars, rewriting his identity along the way. He gave audiences comedic brilliance, romantic tension, and espionage thrills that still captivate viewers to this day. But behind the scenes, he wrestled with demons that no amount of fame or fortune could quiet. His decision to step away from acting to focus on his daughter was, by all accounts, a testament to the depth of his devotion and perhaps an attempt to heal his own childhood wounds. Was he a controlling father who suffocated Jennifer with rules and constant monitoring, or a doting dad trying to provide the love he'd never received? The truth may lie somewhere in between. Jennifer Grant, in her own words, presents a balanced view, insisting he was simply human, brilliant but flawed, protective to a fault, and passionate about creating a bond she would cherish for a lifetime. Cary Grant's tumultuous personal life only magnifies the intrigue surrounding the beloved star who charmed the world with his wit and elegance. From his many marriages to the persistent rumors about his sexuality, it seems there was always more going on behind that dazzling Hollywood smile. But was it his unrelenting search for genuine affection, or a deeper internal conflict that propelled him through such a whirlwind of relationships and speculation? Let us know in the comments what you think truly shaped Cary Grant's remarkable yet complicated life. And if you found this story as fascinating as we did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more revealing looks into the untold tales of Hollywood's most iconic figures.
And love divided by two.